Hello, I'm Dane. Welcome to another episode of Dash Jutsu. In today's episode, we'll be continuing with our web scraping with Power Glue. And again, we'll be web scraping IMDB top 250 movies. In the previous episode, we scraped this webpage. So we scraped the title, the thumbnail, the year of release, the duration, as well as the ratings. And we also scraped the movie ID, which we'll be using in today's episode. So we'll go from this top 250 page to the information in this movie page. So let's connect to this movie page. New source, web. But this time we will not be connecting to the table, we'll be connecting to the HTML code itself. And while that is loading, let's inspect the web page. So we will try to get these information or some of these. We have the stars, the writers, the director, and possibly even the total number of votes. Because in this page we have the votes in text. It says 3M. We don't have the exact number of votes. So let's inspect the web page using a developer tool to see if we can find some information. Mm. Okay. We can actually try to just connect directly to the HTML code and figure out some patterns, or we can have a look at what this web page actually returns, whether it returns a JSON file or a JSON document, which we can use as our data. It does return, but most these JSON files are not what we need. So we'll go to page source and let's find some JSON from here. JSON. So we've actually got a JSON file, and I think this is what we need. Right, this is very slow. And there's a way to make this faster. Oh, anyway, I've already done this, so I know which text string the JSON ends. So let's go back to the query editor and connect to the HTML code. Advanced editor. We'll change it to make sure that we'll be able to insert stacks using the GUI in source. So we have the source and then we end with source. Done. So now insert a stack. So what we want to do is, where's that JSON? First get the text strings after this text string. So text, text dot after delimited. Then I already know which text string we need to get. So we'll be renaming this step to JSON start, and then we'll insert another and we'll call this one JSON end, and we'll be extracting a text before a specific delimiter, and that delimiter is now if you're going to do this yourself, this will take a lot of trial and error to figure out the delimiters to use or to even figure out the logic. So we now have our JSON text string. What we need to do next is to convert this to or to read this as a JSON file. So insert another step and we name this to JSON JSON. The JSON dot document. So and then let's convert this to a table. And we'll call this movie Jason. We'll call the query movie Jason. And then we transpose this. Go to transpose. Then use the first row as a header. So what information do we have? We have the description, the image. We already have the image here, but let's check. This one is thumbnail, while this one is the movie poster, which is a lot bigger and of a better resolution. And we have a description for reviews. And in this review, which is a review, the rating. So we've got in this aggregate rating, we've got the rating count, which is 3,034,000 something, which is this. But this one is in text, and this one contains the actual number of votes. We've got the content rating as well. Do we have that in? Yes, we have that. So we don't need to get that. Content rating. Genre. Yeah, drama, but there can be more than one genre in a movie. So this can contain more than one row. We have the keywords, date publish, and the director. So, and we do have the duration. In the previous episode, we had to convert a duration this to number of minutes using AI and still in Power Query. So we have the actual duration here. I will not load this, but instead, what I will do is I'll be using this one later. The code and apply this to our top 250 movies. So I'll duplicate this one and I'll rename this additional info. Top 250 additional info. And I did some, I created extra custom columns before, so I'll delete them. I'll delete this one as well. I delete this and I'll delete the ordered columns. What I'm interested in is just the movie ID. And then and then we create the HTML or we connect to the web page that has this movies. So if we go back to this, we do have this patterns. We have HTTPS, blah blah blah, and then the movie ID. So we'll be using this pattern to connect to this web page dynamically. Now let's go back to view editor. And I'll select just one for the meantime. So the rendering of custom column is a lot faster. So I'm going to be using web.contents. And I'll just ignore data privacy because it's all public data. And so let's go back to what web.content does, or rather what we need to do with web.contents. So here's Here's the information about web.contents. If you don't know yet, you can actually get the information about a specific function by creating a blank query and then equals, then the function. So what I'm interested in is this one. We'll be using the relative path to be able to refresh a query in the service, because if we don't, we'll be creating a dynamic data source which is not supported in the service. Cancelled. Why cancel? Mm, Oh, here we go. So let rel path equals movie ID, and the relative path is this. And rel path. and I don't need the second attribute, so I deleted that. And then I'll remove this one. Okay. Okay. So we now have our HTML. So this is a binary file. And what we want to do is to get the code. So what function are we going to use? We go back to this. Let's change this a bit. Mm, Binary file, and binary file equals that. And 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 we want to convert this binary file into a text that from binary file. Let's say encoding. Encoding is this. Title. Oh, why is it Bing? Not supposed to be Bing. Let's go back to that web page and copy the correct URL. So we now have this. So what we're going to do is to apply this. We'll be creating a custom column using this information. Custom column, and I'll call this custom column table, or let's say data, or JSON data. And our source is HTML column. Okay, we now have our table. So what are we interested in? Let's say we have the description. We don't have a description, so we'll get a description. A description, have you get rating, a URL, which is, or this one, this image URL. And we'll have just these. And the rating, what we are interested in is the rating count. And look, name this number, like votes, movie description, movie poster. After adding this, let's delete this. And then we've got the additional information we need. So let's just transform or just use this. Change them all to text except for this one. This is whole number. So we'll duplicate this one, duplicate, and what additional information, what other information should we get from that? From that JSON table, delete until end. Let's say a genre. Let's get a genre. We'll call this genre. And then we expand the values in rows. I'll change it to text and duplicate this one again. And let's pick something else. Not a genre, but maybe the director. Expand to new rows. And we got records. And then expand that off. And change the type to text. And remember, we filtered this table earlier. So let's remove the filters so you can see all information pertaining to the director. Column date published wasn't found. So what happened to that? Okay, so let's remove the step and add customs. This is what's causing the error because for some movies they published column does not exist. So we'll remove that. And change to transposed the promoted headers rather than transpose. So change type and no more errors. So this is the vector. And we need to do the same with the other tables. And then genre. Just filtered rows. This really takes some time. This is what happens when you create a web page. No, not just a web page, but there's this main movie page or top 250 movie page, and then the movie pages after within or including that top 250 movies. And here we go. And here. So the next thing to do is of course load this to the model, and that will take some time. So I will end my video with this part. And thank you for staying with me. I hope you've learned something. Have a good one. Bye bye.